Welcome to Sam and Scott are watching Watchmen, the show where we watch the HBO show Watchmen. I'm Scott.
And I'm Sam.
And we're here today to talk about the Watchmen movie. And that's exciting.
That is
it's going to be an exciting time.
super exciting. Guys, this is the second time we're doing a video podcast.
Yes.
Video cast.
We didn't get enough negative feedback to not do it again. Which is a surprise. I was surprised a little bit myself.
Yeah. It's absolutely.
So without further ado, I'm Scott. This is Sam. You know, you can find us in a lot of places. You can find our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, all the podcast apps you use.
All the podcast apps, Spotify, basically anywhere that you find your podcast, we are on there. We are on Google Play. So, download us, listen to us.
Yeah. Do it now. In fact,
turn off the podcast and listen to our past stuff and catch up.
Yeah.
Binge if you want to. Binge mode.
We binge here.
Yeah,
we don't do anything else. We just binge. Just consume.
We bitch and binge. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Nerd culture now, right?
Oh,
so if you're just joining us for the first time, this is one of the ones that's not in sequence. It's a surprise, right? Because usually we start out with a disclaimer. Mm-hmm. Sam, I'm excited. I think we're 15 days away. Like right now.
Whew. Yeah.
Now. Exactly 15 days from this.
It is on and popping as far as getting the Watchmen. The HBO show is coming up, and it's been coming fast. Ever since they announced this about a couple years ago, I never thought this time these days would just come so fast, so quickly. We're almost upon, October 20th is when the debut is going to happen. Sunday night, 9 o'clock is going to be one of HBO's premiere, TV shows and everything. And hopefully, we get something great going on.
A lot of people are into this. It's getting a lot of buzz right now. The creators, everything. So, real exciting time.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when they announced this show, we'd been podcasting for a while, and you said, "Hey, let's do a show about Watchmen."
Let's do a show about Watchmen.
And I thought to myself, that show's never going to air.
Is that what you were thinking? Oh,
that's
my.
What I thought. So I figured, when I said, sure, we'll do that.
Yeah. Whatever, Sam. Yes. Okay, we will do it, Sam.
And then somehow we're going to end up talking about Batman the whole time.
Yeah. And his tendencies, don't forget about that.
He's Warner Brother products, right? So we're real excited for the show. We've been plotting and planning on this for a lot. So this is, this podcast is kind of the capstone for our series about the pre-show media.
Right.
Super exciting. I remember when I saw this movie, I saw it the week it came out back in 2009, and it was March, so it was pretty cold. And I just remember having like literally one of the 5 or 6 worst hangovers of my life.
Oh man.
This movie
really?
Just being like,
wow. Oh man.
Yeah, it was like day 3 or 4, like day 2 of 4 or 5. Anyway, 10 years is a long time, kids. It really is. So I anticipated this movie greatly. Obviously, I don't have to prove my credit here as far as liking Watchmen.
Yeah.
So just to start us off, all right, I want to address. We're going to talk about things we like, talk about things we didn't like. We're not going to go scene by scene because I think that our recap is like. Enough of that.
Well, we've done like 12 issues and everything, so this is like going into like the movie. We don't need to do a breakdown as of right now. We might at some point in the future, but as of right now, we're not going to do a breakdown scene by scene as Scott was saying about like the actual movie itself. Just to get a couple house cleaning stuff out the way, Scott. You can reach us on nerdcyclopedia.com, so make sure you go to that site. As Scott was saying that, make sure you check out all our podcasts. Email us at nerdcyclopedia.com and also at our Gmail, Sam and Scott are watching Watchmen. Excuse me.
It's our email is watchingwatchmen at nerdcyclopedia.com.
See. What would it be if I didn't have my main partner, in crime correcting me on a live video podcast,
Watching Watchmen at nerdcyclopedia.
Get it right, Sam. This is like, see how he's looking at it. See, I don't get to see him that often and everything, and he's giving me the side. I say, so you don't know this by now? Oh, Jesus Christ! Sam.
Someone's gonna be like who the heck is Sam? Why does everyone hate him?
Hashtag hate Sam.
So without further ado, let's jump into my favorite part of the whole movie is right at the beginning. and
that's your favorite part.
it's my favorite part, and it's awesome, and it's really good. So the scene where they talk about they play the times they are changing by Bob Dylan, and they show the montage of the rise and then collapse of the Minutemen in the 40s. That is my favorite part of this movie. It is sweet. It is like the best.
Yeah, I think I think throughout, like when it first came out and everything, that was probably like the biggest jump off, the biggest the thing about the movie itself, because it really got into like the history in a 3-minute montage. It really got into like the history of the Watchmen and everything in a way that really just capsized like the whole like the 12-issue miniseries, maxi series and everything. He captured that really great. In a whole music video-ish. Zack Snyder had a music video-ish background. So
he is the best. He's one of the best music video directors ever.
Yeah,
I mean, honestly, just between this and what was that movie? Was it Jawbreaker? Is that what it was? What was that movie called that he made in between like this and 300?
Sucker Punch, or was that after the Sucker Punch?
That's the movie I'm thinking of for sure.
Okay. With the 5 females.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they have like the different music video action sequences, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and she got a lobotomy.
So
those are the types of movies Zach's good at, things where we don't have to talk about character.
No. So
he's really great at like slow-mo action sequences, and I was watching this movie with Holly, my wife, and she just finished the comic book, so like coming soon is her episode. We're gonna talk with her about all this stuff, so we're super happy about that. But she was like, is he just strong enough to just punch through walls or something? And I was like, just think of this like a kung fu movie, and this is gonna be a lot more fun for everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's a sad thing coming off reading the book, having to come to think about this movie as such that, because a lot of people really do like this movie. A lot of there's a cult following with this movie that I think it was a way of like of Zack Snyder's, his way of directing movies, like with Sucker Punch, 300 with the slow motion action and everything, combined with the fact that you're combining the immovable object with the material, so there's no way you can actually avoid the actual impact of the material with the way he directs his movie. So when he combined it all together, it sort of created this hodgepodge of like just a mixed bag. I think with me and you and a lot of other people, it just created just this way of looking at this movie and just being just like, okay, what is this? What is this that you're actually putting out there, Zach? Versus those who are actually, you got people who actually not really what I want to say here, who haven't really read the books, who actually look at this movie as like a Bible. It's like, this is one of the best movies ever made.
Well, it's not a bad movie. Before we, I'm not going to cast those sorts of aspersions on it. I think that the problems with this movie really come down to Zack Snyder and the rest of the production crew did kind of focus on remaining faithful to maybe the wrong parts of the story. There are so many frame accurate depictions, like they're frame like exactly depicted the way it's drawn. Storyboarded. And there's so much of that you can tell that there was just this, there was just a drive to honor the source material and to be faithful to it.
Yeah.
But I think in some cases, the faithfulness in the plotting and in the characterization was mixed with an attempt to make the movie like Spider-Man 5.5 or something like that, right? Which makes it feel like something out of a different era from what it was, because it came out in 2009, which is firmly in the current superhero era because it's after Dark Knight.
Yeah.
And I think Dark Knight's the beginning, the first movie of the new superhero. In my opinion.
Okay. Yeah. Great way to put that.
But it's like Spider-Man. It's a lot like Spider-Man 1 or Spider-Man 2 when you look at the different costuming and the how everything's shot, how everything's depicted, how the superheroes themselves are depicted as very much a green Goblin sort of power suity kind of armory. You know what I mean? That's what Ozzy's suit and Night Owl's suit kind of look like that.
Yeah, they were in between that Dark Knight-ish,
Yeah.
and the Spider-Man era and everything. So trying to like, juggle the two, and it was really kind of daunting. I remember when the movie came out, I knew who the characters were, but a lot of the general audience just didn't know who these set of characters were. So there was really no history to really base them off. You had your Batman, you had your Spider-Man, and everything. When Dark Knight came out, you knew who Batman was.
Yeah.
You could call the movie The Dark Knight.
Yeah, Batman's Q score is pretty high. People know. People
Exactly.
know Batman.
So, when you talk about going to, looking at comic book characters as dark and everything, I mean, that's fine because Batman has already been established. You know who that is, and Joker and everything. Mm-hmm. Watchmen it really didn't have that general history with the general audience and everything. No one knew who Night Owl was. No one knew who Dr. Manhattan was. It was just a bunch of colored superheroes and everything that you put on screen, colorful superheroes that you put on screen. And the deep history that the comic book had with them, you try to put that on a screen in a 2 hour to almost 2.5 hour type of format and try to sell it to like a general audience. They sort of, I sort of just, they sort of looked at the movie as like, what is this thing that we're looking at on screen that was sort of on the same lines as Hulk? Remember Hulk, Ang Lee's Hulk? Yeah. We tried to do like a different take on it, and general audience didn't really like that. That's how I sort of felt with which Watchmen and everything. They just sort of just took it in and spit it out. What is this garbage? We don't like it. We don't want it.
I think that
it bombed at the box office at the time.
It didn't bomb that hard. It made $185 million on $130 to $150 million budget. It was a bomb.
Yeah,
that is not a success. But it wasn't like some sort of like terrible bomb where it made like half of its budget or something.
It wasn't John Carter bomb. Okay.
No. John Carter kept Spider-Man out of the MCU for like an extra 5 years. That's how bad a movie that was.
Yeah.
That was a mistake.
Yeah. Pretty much there. That was just
just awful.
Yeah.
So let's talk about something let's each say something we liked.
Okay.
About the movie, and I'm gonna pick. You go first since I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, or I can go first, whichever.
Well, okay. One thing I could say about Zack Snyder, his visual direction and cinematography in the movie and everything, I've always liked the way he positioned characters. Like one instance in the very first scene in the movie, where the doctors are setting the doomsday clock to 12 and everything, and the way he positioned them to look at the screen and everything. I've always liked that particular scene because it really depicted a way of the doomsday clock, how it, they just, set it towards 12, and how he had the voiceover in the background of the guy just talking about the presentation of the doomsday clock and everything. So that's one aspect that I really like, as far as the movie. Trying to dig through different themes.
I like Jackie Earle Haley.
Yeah,
I thought Jackie Earle Haley's performance as Rorschach was really good. I really liked his voiceover reading.
Okay.
I thought that captured sort of what
he was perfect casting for Rorschach.
For sure, because he's such a little tiny dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's just so little and full of hate. Mm-hmm.
Rage.
But rage, yeah. And I thought that performance was really great. I really enjoyed the voiceovers. I thought that the way that they write Rorschach's script on the book, I felt like this was a really good embodiment of that. Really, really enjoyed that. Made me believe that he was dangerous, even out of the suit.
Right.
Which is, that's not an easy thing to do when you're playing a character who's like 5'2". Right. Like to convey that sort of menace without being able to be the size of the Rock. Right. Like that's not easy. So I really like that a lot.
Okay.
I I'm going to say something I didn't like that much. And one
Well,
of the things
we'll still keep on this thing.
you want to alternate a little?
Yeah,
I was thinking we alternate, right?
Okay.
Because I don't want to feel like
well. Let me come back with another character I did like, Night Owl. I actually like can't forget. I forget the name of the guy who did play Night Owl, but I did like his character in the movie. I thought he did embody, Dryberg pretty decent, even though he didn't carry the weight of and the depiction like Gibbons did in the book, where he was slightly a little overweight, and his portliness and everything, and just his everymanish and everything didn't really convey like how they wanted him to look like an actual Batman character in the movie with like muscles and the way his suit was. No, that's not the way he's supposed to look. But I did like his portrayal of Dryberg, in the movie.
I thought that that was good too. I really enjoyed. I kind of like that they didn't make him real paunchy, because in a movie, it's a lot less believable if someone's like my size flipping around, you know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't look right. It's not the same thing as on a comic where you can be like, oh, this guy's real fat and he can just cut through it. It's not the same thing.
Right.
I liked a lot. I thought he brought a lot of the sort of like decency that the Dryberg has. I think that's something that Dan, it's special about Dan Dryberg in comparison to the rest of the heroes, and it's something that links him to Hollis, because Hollis Mason is also that sort of decent, sort of all-American guy, and it's nice to see. It's nice to see them cast a Night Owl that was able to bring that to the character. He's not just a psychopath like the rest of them, right? Like these other people are insane.
There was a reason why he ended up becoming Night Owl, and they made that connection pretty decent for the movie, at least, with his connection with Hollis Mason.
Yeah, I believe that connection.
Right.
I thought that was really, really great. Matthew Good as Ozymandias was.
Yeah, I think
for me he played that a little bit too, like, cool and breezy.
Okay.
Okay. Like Ozymandias to me should be a little bit more aggressive in like the way he talks about. And like his demeanor, right? Especially business wise. Like he's just a little too.
I didn't believe him. I didn't believe him. I didn't believe that he embodied the comic book version of the character. I just didn't believe him in the sense of the movie itself, in the essence, in the encapsulation of the movie itself and everything, compared to the other characters. I don't think I really believed the fact that he was the one that caused everything. He appeared more cartoony and more villainous out of everyone. Like in the maxis, the 12-issue maxi series, a graphic novel, you had to really guess that he was the one who orchestrated everything. In the movie version, you could sort of tell early on that this is the guy who ends up being like the villain, the quote unquote villain.
Well, there's a reason that movies tend to be cultural touchstones more often than books, and it's because they're easier, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong. I mean, I don't always want to read Ulysses by James Joyce every single time I sit down. Right? Obviously, I do a podcast. I don't know if you knew this, Sam. I do a podcast about Watchmen and Batman and all this other stuff. So for me, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
One thing about it that's sort of weird, and it's one of those production adaptation things, is that they took great pains to get someone. They got John Boyd played Richard Nixon, I think.
Yeah.
And they had all these lookalikes for like Lee Iacocca and Ted Koppel and John McLaughlin, all these really famous TV people. And that was weird because that is something that is not really that present in the book. I mean, certainly you get Nixon, obviously, and all the Nixon cronies that are still kicking around the 80s, like Gordon Liddy and all those guys. But you don't have a lot of those sort of like famous cameos, like Michael Jackson isn't in the book. You know what I mean? And he's not in the movie, but there's all these like little things that they want to place it in 1985.
To sort of drive the point home to a general audience, this is taking place in 1985. I don't think you necessarily have to hit a general audience over the head that much I think is sort of going to hit on, and we'll probably talk even more about this and keep hitting on the point, later on, that they keep hitting on points where you're missing the point of the actual book itself, and you're taking away the soul of the book. I think what you were trying to say early on, some of the things that Zack missed when he was trying to input like all the action and everything and all the stylized thing, is sort of just, and when you were talking about the panels, the storyboarding and everything, just sticking so close to the storyboard, you missed the soul of the book. You missed the whole essence of the book itself by just sticking so close to the source material that you just miss all the nuances and miss all the layers and everything that you really can't tell in a 2.5 hour movie.
Mm-hmm. Now I want to address this then, because and this is something that's important, because we have a lot of people that are probably going to watch this movie and then watch the TV show,
and listen to our podcast,
and then listen to our podcast and watch with us, because that's what this is all about.
Right.
But for those that didn't read the book, you should know the ending of the book is not the same as the ending of the movie, and there's some pretty pronounced.
There's a dispute there too. There's some not even so much a dispute. There is some people who actually think the ending of the movie is better than the book. Can you believe that?
I don't believe that.
Okay.
So in the book, Ozymandias has this insane, Rube Goldberg machine to drop a psychic squid in the middle of New York and murder.
Sounds ridiculous when you talk about it.
I know, right? You say it and it sounds so stupid.
Right.
And there's a whole subplot where he's collecting scientists and psychics, and it's sort of teased out through the book. Not a part of the movie. Right. In the movie, Ozymandias essentially frames Dr. Manhattan for the destruction of like 10 cities, like LA and Moscow and London and New York.
Right.
And it's this big Dr. Manhattan like bomb that goes off and destroys all the buildings too, which is not something that happens in the book either. It just kills all the people.
He was basically the reason why, to bring the whole world together and everything.
Yeah.
The countries together, stop fighting.
So Dr. Manhattan's like sort of a villain in the movie. And in the movie, and what's interesting, because we talked about this, I remember talking about this with you when we recorded the episode for chapter 12, how Dr. Manhattan lies about what happens to Rorschach in the book, right? He says, he'll die of exposure, right? But in the movie, Dan sees Dr. Manhattan liquefy Rorschach, like it happens right in front of him.
Right.
And he just yells, "No!"
Right.
No! And he goes and punches Adrian in the face. So, for me, and I think that it's obvious that the show is done away with that piece, because all the people of Earth in the show are going to, from the trailers we've seen, they're all, where's Dr. Manhattan? Is he coming back? It's sort of a religious kind of. So, they decided to go with the comic on that. So try not to get confused about that, because probably in the show, Dr. Manhattan is not responsible for the destruction of, all the major cities in the country.
Yeah. So a friend of mine asked me, okay, what should I watch the movie? Because I don't think I'm going to really read the books. But should I watch? Is it necessary to watch this movie before you actually see the Watchmen TV show? And I was like, no. Okay. While it would add to your knowledge of the actual world and everything, Damon Lindelof is, explicitly said you don't need to watch the movie or read the books in order to, receive and watch this, TV show that's coming out.
Don't be intimidated.
But don't. It's while it's not necessarily, it does enhance your whole worldview of Watchmen, because it is based on, the Watchmen, graphic novel and everything. So the canon he's taken is not from the movie. Okay, no. He's taken everything from the book and applying it as if everything that happened in the book happened, and if that was a history in the universe where you fast forward to 2019, 1819 or whatever, this is what's happening in the world today based on the events that happened in the book. Okay, not the movie. Now, if you want to take the, if you want to watch the movie and take the characters, a lot of the events that happen in the movie, obviously, they'll happen in the book itself. That's just a good way of looking at enhancing your worldview of Watchmen And you could go into like the TV show, just okay. Well, I know Dr. Manhattan because he was in the movie. I'd seen the Owl Ship because that was in the movie. You know, a lot of those events and everything are right there. So if you're asking if you should watch the movie beforehand, like I said, it's up to you. You don't have to.
Do whatever you want. You're an adult.
Yeah.
Probably you're an adult. I mean, I hope it's going to be a TVMA.
Yeah, pretty much. It's your world, though. You know, you do what you want to do. But I think when we're talking about watching this, you know, looking at this movie, and I actually have it on right here on my iPad.
You still watching it? I mean, that's a don't stop right there.
We're always watching Watchmen. I mean, come on now. You know, we're counting down and everything.
Once again, you're going first. So it's perfect. It really works out.
That's what it's for. But just the gloss. One thing that struck me and still strikes me now, the gloss of the movie is just, while it's fine on its own. If this movie wasn't called Watchmen, you know, it would be fine as a movie on its own. But the gloss and like the stylization and everything of the movie, it just takes so much away from the source material. And a movie doesn't have to be beholden to its source material, but it's so much Zack Snyderness to this movie based on what we know of him with Sucker Punch, you know, 300, Dawn of the Dead and everything. It's so much Zack Snyderness in this movie that whoever made the choice of putting him as director of this movie just did such a bad job in choosing him to do this movie. You know,
I feel like if he only was doing a movie about this universe in like 1942, it'd be fine. Yeah, it'd be really good.
Yeah, with characters that we don't know, have no relationship, you know, and everything, and he actually knew what he was doing and everything. Then yeah, it would be fine, you know. But you smack this with Alan Moore, and we know how prestigious Alan Moore is, and how, you know, how much we hold high the source material. We combine that with Zack Snyder, and you're just going, like I was saying before, you're just going to get this hodgepodge, a mixture of different stuff that you could say, okay, this is good with the movie, and this is bad with the movie, you know. And when you combine it all together, it's just not a really great mixture in my eyes, you know. Now, like I said before, there's a lot of people who really like this movie, and watching it over again, as we've talked about, like the 12 issues and everything, I've gained a little bit more of appreciation of the nuances of this movie and how he tried, especially with the director's cut and the ultimate cut. So you watched the ultimate cut. I'm sorry, the director's cut. What did you think of that compared to when you've last seen the movie?
So I hadn't seen the movie in a while, and part of that is because since, you know, we talked about doing the show, I wanted to come fresh when we did the podcast. I didn't want to have seen it like 6 or 7 times this year. So I think that the director's cut's better, for sure, because it has more things. It has the murder of Hollis Mason that I do not remember being in
the regular movie,
in the real release, the real release, the theatrical release.
The theatrical, yeah.
It's got more in the montage too, which I like. At the beginning, so there's plenty of stuff like that, little scenes and little differences. We were like watching it today, you know, and I was like, oh man, am I gonna get this done before we go to air? I was I wasn't sure because it's so long, you know. There's so much. Right. There's extra little nicks and bits and a few things like that could go. Right. But I would say that on the whole, the director's cut does add more than it takes away from the theatrical. So what did you think about the ultimate cut?
The ultimate cut, it was a little jarring and everything, because I did watch it with my wife, and she was like, what is this cartoon doing in the middle of the movie? You know, and why does it keep interspersing? You know, what is that? Why? She just couldn't figure out what the heck the Black Freighter meant. You know, why was it there? Like, what? We know why it was in a comic and how it, you know, was really just presented the overall theme of the, you know, Watchmen period and everything. But the Black Freighter inside the movie itself really didn't make sense to me within the, if you really didn't know why it was there, you really didn't make sense to have it in the movie period, you know? So, I know why they did it because they just wanted to, complete the whole, ultimate cut. But
get it all together.
Get it all together and everything. But it really wasn't necessary in the context of the actual movie itself. You don't need the Black Freighter in there. So so we know the Black Freighter and the artist, which is nowhere to be found in the movie. The reason why he went to that island, the whole
reason that's in there is because it's that guy.
Exactly. So why would you put this in the movie and make it as your actual animated thing, but just to say, okay, I did the Black Freighter because it needed to be in there? No, you don't need the Black Freighter anywhere near this. If this is the type of movie that you want to tell, Zach, you don't need the Black Freighter in there. I understand it may have disappointed some of the fans, in 2008 when it came out, if you didn't put it in there. But it wasn't necessary in the whole context of what the story he was telling in the movie if you don't include Max Shea, his whole efforts and everything and create.
Because they're not necessary.
They're not
because you don't need them.
Period.
Because
Exactly.
you already have a boogeyman. You Dr. Manhattan. Everybody's afraid of him already, right?
Right.
No assembly required.
You got this kid reading a comic book, on the street and everything, and it's really no extra layer of contents to why this whole story, Black Freighter, is there, So that was essentially, you seen the director's cut. The Black Freighter is just interspersed throughout the movie, and
that's the only difference.
That's the only difference, It just.
I told Holly that was the difference, and she asked me, and I was like, "I bet it's that cartoon. I bet it's that." She was like, "Gerard Butler was the cartoon guy." I was like, "Gerard Butler. It was a big deal." Also, he owed Zack Snyder. Probably still owes Zack Snyder for his career.
And the animation to me wasn't even that great, It was just okay. It was just so and okay and everything, But they put it in there, and they felt, I guess, it was a need just to enhance the story to make it the ultimate cut. So it's there. It didn't really add anything to the story, in my belief,
Yeah.
But the ultimate, as far as the ultimate cut, it's a almost 4-hour movie with that. So if you're just a completist, I guess it's fine, in the context of I need to have everything Watchmen wise. It just also, Scott, it goes to show you how much they missed the mark with not making this like a trilogy. If you were going to do this story, if you were going to do Watchmen story and not make it an HBO miniseries like what everybody wanted to back then, you should have did this as a trilogy. Back in like 2008, you had The Dark Knight, you had Batman Begins and everything. Whoever made the decision, again, Warner Brother executive, to just make this one movie just shows me that you did not understand the material that you had in your hands. You had a really good opportunity to expand. If you wanted to make money that bad, and you had an opportunity to expand this story out for 3 movies, which is like how movies are pretty much done nowadays. They want to expand the universes, expand the stories and everything. Back then, one and done standalone, we'll see how this goes and everything. I always thought Watchmen, if it was done in a movie, should have been a trilogy or, Lord of the Rings type of thing. But they didn't want to do it.
To me, it's like, if you were to put just the story, just like the Rorschach on, like just that piece of the story into this movie, and then you wanted to have other movies that showed like 66 or the Keen Act, or you wanted to do it like that, I think that's really great. I don't know how much better a movie's going to get. Honestly, just because of the challenges you're describing, because so much of this story is based on character development and history and understanding what karma does to these people, right? What the karma of subsuming their own morality in the service of a greater good, right? What does this do to these people? It destroys them over time, and that's something that by its nature doesn't pay off as much in short form media.
No, not at all.
So Watchmen is actually the perfect show for HBO to adapt because it is more adult source material. There's sex in it, and HBO long sex content. Hey, we ain't hating. We ain't hating. I'm not a hater when it comes to that stuff. Way to go. You do what you got to do.
We had the Game of Thrones, right? Huh?
I'm not a hater on Game of Thrones. No one's hating on Game of Thrones. Not on this podcast anyway. We don't do that. But so for me, I'm really excited that it's coming out as an HBO series, and they're going to be doing things in this universe and using. It seems like what they have is sort of a mythology of the events of 1985, a disputed accounting of what took place. And it seems like, this Rorschach mask terrorist society
Hmm.
has sprung up from the Minority Report, or Minority Reading of '85, which is that it was all a crock, and Ozymandias probably is still alive and evil and nefarious,
Right.
and probably there's a lot of interest in holding that harmonious world order together.
Yeah, we'll do a preview podcast and everything, talking about how that, how those events that happened in '85 influence like, this group, this quote unquote this cell terrorist, group that's coming out and everything in the HBO
Rorschach's
series.
Journal. I mean, that's my inference from what we've seen so far. It's my guess, and I guess you're right. I shouldn't be guessing.
Yeah, well, it's a lot to talk about there, and I do want to get to that too. But just to circle back to the movie here and everything,
Okay, fine, Sam. Circle back to the movie just like you want to circle.
It's some things I'm looking at here, like they had this night shot of Rorschach jumping over a building, into like a dark nightish with the lightning striking and everything. He's jumping, he's going towards Dr. Manhattan's where Dr. Manhattan is doing his experiments and everything, and we're about to meet Laurie and everything. But before that, Rorschach is like Batman. He's not Batman in the in the in the graphic novel. The graphic novel is so grounded that Zach really missed the point in making this like the Spider-Man-ish, Sam Raimi. It's a lot of Sam Raimi-ish.
Yep.
With his version that
which is so weird because it's coming out of the same shop,
right,
as The Dark Knight,
yes,
and as Batman Begins. And Batman Begins came out 4 years before this. Batman Begins was like 2005.
Yeah,
it was a while ago.
And
so
Chris Nolan didn't even settle into his Dark Knight style with that. He was still conforming to some Warner Brothers stuff with the Batman Begins.
But he was moving the needle, right?
Yeah,
It's almost like if you look at Watchmen, and they could have either done what was new, or they could have done what they did. And it feels like the decisions they made as far as how everything looked and those sort of things that felt dropped into a very realistic world, actually.
Right.
A very realistic city with realistic streets and realistic signage.
Right.
And like the pyramid,
right,
when Pyramid would show up or V would show up, or those sort of, those would be noticeable, but it would look organic.
Right.
And then dropping into it, magic, like a magic suit. You can't get shot.
Well, I guess if you think about it, so
instead of really grounding the whole thing, you know what I mean?
So Watchmen was probably made around the same time, or started being made around the same time Dark Knight, because they came out within a year of each other. Usually movies are made like and take out
Dark Knight came out in like July of 8, and then this came out in March of 9, and I think it did get pushed back a little bit.
So they were pretty much in production around the same time. So one was really ahead of the other. Mm-hmm. Chris Nolan was already in his style with The Dark Knight based on what he did with Batman Begins, and grounding that character and that world and everything to a point where, you had like a lot of shots that weren't polished. They weren't stylized or anything like that. Where the template that Zach was working on was still his 300, still the Sam Raimi stuff, and probably even still more or less the Batman and Robin and the Batman Forever template and everything of superheroes. You have to have them glossy and stylized, and their suits have to be perfect. The Dark Knight suit wasn't perfect. And Batman was obviously he was the only superhero in that movie, but no one else in that movie looked cartoonish or anything like that. Joker even, he had messed up, he wasn't the Joker that we all knew from the cartoon, and he had messed up makeup, and his lipstick and everything wasn't all straightened, not the Joker that we're used to and everything. So for this,
I remember they made a big deal out of him wearing the makeup instead of just Joker looks like that.
Yeah. But in the context of that movie, it worked out. It worked out perfectly. But Zach, he took what he thought, I guess, superheroes was supposed to look. And I guess the notation, the notes that Warner Brothers say, since people don't really know who these heroes are, we got to make them look like the Spider-Man-ish, the Batman, what we know from Batman, excuse me, Batman and Robin, Batman Forever, the Michael Keaton, Tim Burton, style and everything, have their suits glossed out and everything.
And then they put them all in capes. Which is like made a huge deal is made about how they like don't wear capes because of dollar bill. Now they all got capes.
And they all got capes. So these are superheroes. You selling them to a general audience, so they have to look like superheroes, which is totally missing the point of what the book was, Mr. Warner Brothers executive. Yeah. If we're going to talk about another thing that really just stuck with me, okay, I'm looking at Lori. Okay. So I liked the actress, but I did not like her portrayal of Lori. She was so annoying in that movie. She was just so whiny and so, what did we talk about, Scott? Lori really presented herself as a doubter in the beginning, but she found herself in the end. When she got to a point where she went to the Mars with Dr. Manhattan, and the Dr. Manhattan made her realize who she was, and who was her father and everything. And through the course of the series, we see Lori develop from not an annoyance, because she didn't come off as annoying. She didn't come off annoying at all in from the first issue to her whole development to a believer and towards the end of the series and end of the Maxi series and stuff. The way this actress portrays her, or maybe the direction she was told to, it just didn't. She was another character I really didn't believe.
I was thinking along the same lines on Malin Ackerman today, and part of it is that she's a little too feminine. I think a little too girly to be in that role. I think you need someone that's a little bit more aggressive and muscular and strong. And I feel like for me, like Lori is like, the epitome of that robot, of a trained robot. Like she would be like terrifying. Like she should be. She should be very formidable.
In the series, she knows herself. She knows who she are. She's grounded. She knows who she is, and she knows what she likes and what she doesn't like. This one here, I don't think we get that idea of her in the movie itself. We get that she's like it's just following beats, it seems like, and up until the point of when everything happens in the movie. And like you said, effeminate. She is not the damsel in distress and everything.
No, absolutely not.
She's not that, and she's not portrayed that obviously in the book and everything. But being her that she's really the only female besides her mom that's really prominent in the movie itself, it sort of puts her in a position where she has to react more to all the male characters versus how she's portrayed in the comic book, where she has her own sense of agency.
Mm-hmm. She has her own sense of agency. She's forceful. Mm-hmm. She tells people their business. Yes. I mean, she throws a drink in the comedian's face at a presidential reception, and she is
which is not in the movie.
Which is not in the movie. That's, and again, it's a choice.
Right.
And she is the partner for almost 20 years. Mm-hmm. She is the life partner of the most powerful being in the universe.
Yes.
Like she should be. I mean, she should be terrifying.
Right.
Like, you should be very afraid of crossing her. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's just it's just a little bit of a miss. And it could have just been designed. I understand the whole point of Silk Spectre is that she's supposed to be cute and able to beat you up, right? But for me, you can be a little bit more. I feel like she should have been more headstrong. Honestly, I wanted Lori to be more headstrong.
Yeah, and they did. You talking about being cute. They did sexualize her up a lot more in the movie than what she was in the book. They took an element of her being a female character in the book, having legs and having a short skirt and everything, and just heightened it in a Zack type of way, Snyder way in the movie itself, which really again missed the point of her character in the movie.
Yep.
So
they took some of that from Silk Spectre 1 and put it on Silk Spectre 2.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work out because Lori is just so she wants things on her terms, and she's not willing to settle, and she doesn't want to be thought of as a sidekick, right?
Right.
Well,
exactly.
Part of what she's doing in coming out with Dan is not being a sidekick. Right. And having her not be like that is not it's a little disappointing.
You got a character in the book who has that agency. The one in the movie doesn't. You know, she's just more of a reactor to me. You know, she just responds. And while they try to put it in there, you know, the elements of that, I don't think it really conveys it as much as it could have. You know, it just takes spots and everything and tries, but like I said, in the span of a 2 hour movie, you can only do so much, which is,
Yeah.
I guess, no fault of the movie itself. You can only tell the story that you're going to tell.
And part of it maybe is a function of the times. You know, maybe it's just that, you know, what we're looking for is an audience has changed a lot in the last 10 years. And,
It sure
you know,
has.
what we're willing to, you know, what our audience, the audience now is willing to see
hmm
a woman do
hmm
has changed for the better
hmm
and significantly. You know, we had
hmm
Captain Marvel come out this year.
Right.
I feel like there's a good example of what I'm talking about when I say
hmm
aggressive and headstrong
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
stubborn. That character is to me
hmm
more along the lines of what Laurie should have been in this movie.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny that you say that because Alan Moore gave that to her in 1985, and of course, comic books weren't really respected as like great mediums then. So for them to just, I guess, continue that disrespect and not really put it in this movie is just a way of them just trying to sell, you know, characters that nobody knows again, and seeing what they can do, you know, with those characters. Watchmen was not meant to be made into toys. So if that was their reasoning in trying to put this type of movie out with Zach and his Glosson, I mean, they just totally missed the mark. Another thing that I did want to specify and say that I hated from the beginning when I first heard it in the movie was the fact that they called them Watchmen. You know, they called the team Watchmen. Are you serious? You know,
That smacks. That stinks. Some executive with a cigar going like, well, "What are they? The Minutemen and a crime bus? Yeah, how are they the Watchmen? Why are we calling it that? Look, we're cutting it out. Watchmen. That's what we're calling all of it."
the audience is just going to be so confused. Why is this movie called Watchmen when the team is not called Watchmen? You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's like, are you not giving your audience that much you know, we can go into a whole diatribe about, you know, executives not really respecting audience intelligence and everything. Are you really just going to disrespect the audience intelligence enough to really say that, okay, we need to call this, if we're going to call it Watchmen, we need to call the team Watchmen, like the Avengers, Justice League, they need to be
Excellent.
called Watchmen, you know, in the movie. Oh,
I
man.
guess there is a point to that. If they called the show the X-Men Mutants, I might be a little bit.
Oh.
Why is everything an X? I don't know. They're really into that. They
Right?
really.
Oh, they
I
really
mean, they're
love that
into
X.
either,
They
either
love
they're really
crossing.
into Tilted Jesus, or
Yeah. Oh man.
Tilted Jesus is my new thing, by the way.
Tilted Jesus. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
um,
New band name.
um, that's funny. So yeah. So yeah. The Watchmen being called Watchmen. And we get the with the montage and everything that they were called the Minutemen back then and everything. So it was a
Yeah.
great way to set that up, and they could have continued that, you know, throughout the movie, and you know, got into. They really didn't get into the whole crime busters thing either, you know. But I mean, what are you going to do in a 2 hour movie? So to simplify it, I guess in the context of the movie, you had to call them Watchmen just to get the point across. But it's just another way of missing the mark and the whole point of what they try to convey in the graphic novel.
I really enjoyed seeing a paunchy Captain Metropolis in this because, you know, one of the things they changed is they made Adrian be the one calling the meeting and they moved it from 66 to 71 for whatever reason they had to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Probably because they didn't want Dr. Manhattan
Mm-hmm.
making out with a 16-year-old girl. Probably be the I mean,
Right?
okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough, Zach.
Yeah,
Right?
hey,
We'll
you
take
got
that.
you got to take your liberty. I did like the when the montage when they first introduced the Minutemen and they put the Watchmen thing over top of that, and then they came back at the end and had the Watchmen in the same position and against the backdrop in the same area that they had the meeting and everything, and just had them all standing together. Great, he Zach does some great positioning and framing of his characters. He definitely knows how to do that. You know,
I had to do a music video portrait. There's nobody in the world.
Zach would be the first one you would call.
He would be the first one I would call. And I don't want you to feel, it should be. I want to mention here. I mean, we'll talk a little bit about the stuff we like, the stuff we don't like. I mean, this is a solid B for me.
Yeah.
Including the expectations that I would have for this particular.
We're talking about like stuff that we don't like, but you're right. Mm-hmm. It is a solid B. It is not a C or a D and everything. When it came out, it might have been a C in my mind, but over the years and actually after
over.
Yeah.
It was gonna be a B no matter what.
No matter what. Okay.
No,
it was a C.
I just didn't have the energy to say it wasn't a B.
You know what? I had a lot of animosity toward this movie until we actually went over the graphic novel and then I watched it again. I see a lot of things in here that I do like. So it is a solid B in my eyes at this point in time.
And for me, some of the stuff I don't like, I look at, like you said, after reading the book and then watching the movie in such a short order, like, I should like this. I feel like I should like this scene and I don't. So it's hard for me to criticize the choice that was made anyway, because you don't know, if you never adapt source material, it's anything like this, how it's going to land. And, some of those shot for shot, like panel for shot representations, I was just like, eh. And and what am I supposed to say as a comic fan, like as a purist? Like, what am I supposed to say? Like, ew? Like, I wouldn't want you to try to be as close to the material as possible.
Yeah. And also, too, we're coming from a perspective where we know the source material so much because we read it so many times and we did 12 podcasts about them, that we're really close to it. So I actually really appreciate those who hold this movie in the A status, who have come to this movie with no knowledge of the graphic novel and come to this movie and see it exactly how it is and everything, which means to me that if someone can appreciate this movie as what was presented to him in the Zack Snyder way, then I think he's done a dynamic job, because there is a cult following with this movie. I mean, no matter how many you may think about it based on our feelings of it, there is a section of folks that actually hold this movie dear and say that it is a great representation of the complexities it was, because really there was no other movies out there superhero wise that were talking about some of the things they were talking about, like the way the government was being presented, nukes and stuff, the world being on the brink of doomsday and everything, and putting it into a world where there was a Dr. Manhattan, and it just being presented in a way where it was not talking down to you, to like a childlike level. It was actually trying to elevate your intellectual status to a point where you was going to respect people being in costumes, and actually being out there being being superheroes with like Nixon and everything, and the World War III being on the brink of world being on the brink of World War III. What other superhero movie was going in that direction back in 2009?
None of them. I mean, and that's because the source material for Watchmen is unique, and
yes.
and presenting moral complexity in a story like that is a risk.
It's a risk,
and businesses don't like risks, and that you can understand why they wouldn't want to do something like that.
Well, and risk did come because the movie did bomb. So
I think it was a light bomb, but
it wasn't a super bomb. Okay, it wasn't a nuclear bomb. But it was enough to where they was like, okay, we're not going to go in this direction again for a while.
So for me, I think that if they hadn't made the significant changes they made to the plot in the third act, that I would probably like this movie a lot more. And as you probably know from reading my blog on our website, nerdcyclopedia.com, my favorite part of Watchmen is the moral complexity of the character of Ozymandias and the things that he is willing to do for the salvation of a human race.
Oh, man, he is such a
So for me, what they've done by making Dr. Manhattan sort of the foil instead of another thing that had to be conjured out of nothing, and by making the cost a lot higher, right? Because it's in more places, is they've made Ozymandias into a more obviously evil character. And since I want the I want the complexity, and I want to have to sit and think about what I would do, right? Like what because obviously if it's a billion people or one person, you pick the one person. You get one person to save a
Right.
billion.
Right.
So at a certain point,
Mm-hmm.
the morality does tip over, and the question is, where is that? Right? That's the big question of the whole
Right.
book.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's a much more simple question in the movie. Because
yes, it is.
Because not only has he, killed all these people, and it's more people, but he's also, removed Dr. Manhattan from any involvement with mankind also,
Right.
which is going to have a detrimental effect when it comes to medicine and when it comes to energy and when it comes to those sorts of things. And it's also, like I said, much more evil to do what he did in the movie than in the book.
It made it a lot more black and white instead of the gray area that the book had presented. So
you're not supposed to think at the end of that movie like, why are they hassling Ozymandias? You know what I mean? Like, you're not supposed to think like, it was an easy choice. It was an easy choice for all of them to just say, we're going to cover this up forever. And the movie does kind of make it a little bit too easy on them.
Yeah, and it also makes me think of the question of going to another comic book movie, Infinity War, the question of what Thanos did, at the end of that movie. Spoilers for Infinity War for the two folks who haven't seen that movie.
Spoilers for the Odyssey too. Ulysses gets home. So
there you go.
I don't need to spoil that one for everybody.
It's a question of is the quote unquote villain right or the antagonist right? Thanos made the choice. Okay, he had to get rid of half the population of the universe in order for it to survive and thrive and everything, and not eat up all the resources, which is what could come at some point. Which
is obviously stupid because human beings and other biological entities reproduce exponentially until they run out of resources. So what he really is angry about is the entire balance of life, and that's not something you can really fix.
Exactly, but the question in his eyes was that I had to do this. Same as Ozymandias, I had to be the one to make this decision because no one was going to do it. So I have to be the savior. You're so caught up and full of yourself that I have to be the one to do this. But in the movie context, it just took all the layers of why he did it, and like you said, didn't make that didn't put any type of complexities towards it. It just made him sort of like a black and white villain. He's the bad guy. You can sort of tell in the beginning, even the way his hair was presented when he was when we first seen him in his office and everything. That okay, this guy is not good. So and it really just took away the whole mystery of trying to figure out who killed the comedian. You know.
You can kind of see who it is. I mean, and I don't think that coming out 25 years after the original source material. I mean, come on, it's okay to leave a little bit of the spoilers go. I did think that them having Ozymandias catch that cleaver like this in that first scene was pretty rad. I like that a lot. I thought Ozymandias' fighting style was pretty excellent. I thought that how that was presented was good. The rest of them, yeah. I mean, Rorschach was all right, but the whole.
I like the casting of comedian. I thought that was
Morgan.
really Jeffrey Dean Morgan, perfect casting for the comedian. He really portrayed him as like the sociopath that he was.
He's Captain America. That's the thing about Watchmen that I think is so interesting is like the comedian. We know him as this reprobate who does awful things to everybody for like the entire history of his life.
Right.
And the public sees him as someone that fixes Iran-Contra and wins the Vietnam War and has a Medal of Honor from World War II.
Yes.
And he is the Captain America. Like his ass is America's ass. And that's who the comedian is. And to be honest, until I saw this portrayal of him, I didn't get that, right? I didn't get that he's that sort of iconic, like an iconic sort of person, right?
Right. The way the public is presented, the way he's presented to the public is a whole different thing of how we know him because of we know it's like history and everything.
Exactly, and it's so and in the book it's done. That's done by in a very sly way,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And in the movie, it's actually done very well too.
Yeah.
They present that as he's Nixon's guy, and what Nixon wants is for him to, you know, get his ass to Nam and you know, win Nam. Like we're not pulling punches. Like Nixon doesn't pull punches.
Right.
He's willing to do things that maybe a president shouldn't do.
Boy.
In order to maintain his own political power. I mean, listen, parallels to fiction.
The parallels and, you know, the callbacks and everything to a story that was done back in 1985, and, you know, it's we're going to have to at some point address some things. So, but yeah, so Comedian was a really great cast in my eyes. You know, the way he the way he played the character was really great. I wish it was a way where, you know, it was a little bit more meat that he could have put or breathing room he could have put on the character, but he did as well as with the movie that was presented for him.
What can you do? I mean, you get thrown out. You get thrown out a plate glass window like 4 seconds into the movie, and then we whine about him not having screen time like we don't get it. Like, you know what I mean? Like okay.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is, like with an HBO show, we'd have got a whole episode of them doing something in 1940, and we would have got a whole episode of him and Dr. Manhattan in Vietnam, probably.
Right.
You know, for seasons. You know.
How do you think the portrayal of Dr. Manhattan was in the movie? What do you think of that?
I think that they leaned a little heavy into the nudity angle, and I think that part of that is just a difference in how the mediums work.
Okay.
Is that a photorealistic man, you know, man-sized penis that is, and I'm going to point this out to you. The reason Dr. Manhattan looks like the way he does is because John Osterman picked customized this body, which is why he has no body fat, because he doesn't need anything.
Right.
He doesn't need it, right? He doesn't need body fat or anything like that. So, you know, for me, in a photorealistic visual media, it's okay to, you know, it's okay if people wear pants that don't need pants, right? And I understand the point of him being naked, right? Because he's completely unworried.
Yeah, he's completely unworried, doesn't really think any of that matters and everything. But in the context of the movie, you would have had to build up to that.
That's the only part of his body that jiggles, by the way. The rest is because there's no body fat on him, so there wouldn't be any jiggle. You
know what I did? I did also like. I love the way that they played up when John first turned. You know, when he got first, you know, disintegrated and everything, how they how they built up to that from the music and everything, you know, and how it just, you know, the scene just escalated and everything. I think that sequence in that scene was really great, and how they made the audience just feel for this character. He was doomed as soon as that door closed. We see it in the book and everything, how that happened. In the movie, we see it happen in, like, you know, in a real time type of context. And it's just like, oh man, this guy is just like, you know, he's about to get, you know, toast, you know, because they can't open that door, and then all of a sudden he just breaks, and then we get this voiceover, and that's another thing I do like, the way Zack sort of juxtaposed, you know, the voiceover with like flashing back and forth between like, you know, times and everything, because we had, and I believe in that sequence we had him going back and forth from different timelines of when he was talking about what happened, just kind of like how they did in the book too. You know, I did like the way he did that in the movie. Excuse me.
What did you think about the way that he chose to speak? Because I've watched some of the motion comics, which are on YouTube, and you should check them out.
Okay.
And the dude that does those does one voice for everyone, so the girls sound weird. But his Dr. Manhattan is like, it's very robotic and kind of stentorian, like this. This is how he talks, right? Like that. Mm-hmm. And you know, the Dr. Manhattan we have is sort of very wispy, because he's afraid if he used his real voice that your body would liquefy and he would have to reconstitute you. And he's quite frankly a touch busy right now. That's kind of how he talks in the movie, right?
Yeah.
But I want more. I guess I wanted more.
You think?
A little trouble, just a little bit more, well, especially when he gets a little heated. I felt like he should have been a little bit more angry when Lori told him she was sleeping with Dan on Mars. I thought he just was like, I'm mad now.
Well,
That's what I thought.
in the issue where he did let when they had that exchange and everything, I think. Well, you asked me how I felt about it. I think they got it right in my
Mhm.
eyes. I think he comes across being that he's Doctor Manhattan. He doesn't really have a care in the world, about trivial human things and stuff. For the fact that he is sort of softer spoken and wispy, in the way that you say it, I think that does capture. I think they did capture that, really good in the movie. Really, the only time I think he really did yell was when he said, "Leave me alone," just like how he did in the book when he made everyone disappear and everything. In the context of the movie, I thought that was a little okay, that was a little over the top. But that's
It's
just the
like
way it happened in the book.
why not have a 6 volume? You got a not 1 and a 10.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I wanted more of that. I want a little more. For me, I kind of maybe wanted him to be a little more angry at the end,
Okay.
and that I think that changing his murder of Rorschach into an open thing,
Okay.
and
We're not watched them.
right,
Mm-hmm.
and um, removing Ozymandias lying about murdering his assistants.
Yeah. Oh,
It changes a lot because I think that those lies
mm-hmm.
being at the end and being additional, like optional lies, says a lot about what's going to happen in the story.
Mm-hmm.
Next, and pulling them out, I think changes a lot of. I feel a lot more confident that
Mm-hmm.
they'll be able to pull it off in the movie than the book too.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's true because I feel like there's more concrete
Well,
information, and Doctor Manhattan again really exists.
well, I think I think I see your point to a degree. I mean, had Doctor Man being the fact that Doctor Manhattan just said let go of all is slow was slowly in the book progression. The progression in the book, he was letting go of his humanity. He was holding on to certain things that was a part of him, a still part of John Osterman, and then he just slowly over the years just became truly Doctor Manhattan and was just letting go. So I guess an element of the anger should still be there to a degree, but it shouldn't be as much as it was from when he first turned. So for the fact that Ozymandias was able to hide so much from him would to me elicit some type of some type of reaction, because he was essentially able to deceive him, you know, and ended up making him go away, for the most part, in the movie and everything. So I guess I can see your point there.
A little more anger.
Yeah, just maybe just a little bit and everything. Um, yeah, like you said, they did change the way that they showed Rorschach being vanquished.
I
Because he
like that
found
action
out.
sequence.
Yeah, that
Oh no,
that
you're talking about the kablooey.
yeah, the kablooey and
The
everything.
kablooey. The kablooey should. Yeah, the kablooey's fun.
Yeah,
They made
yeah,
him look like a blot.
yeah.
Okay, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the smiley face thing.
Hmm.
Whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Whatever.
Just certain. I mean, if fan service and everything, that's fine. One thing I didn't like in the movie, or I shouldn't say didn't like, but I was disappointed. I didn't. I'm not going to say I didn't like it, but just disappointed in when they presented the whole when the dogs when the two dogs ate the child and everything, and they presented that in a way in the movie where it didn't hit me as much as it hit me in the book.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I really got that feel of. I think in the book, in the movie, it was just shot for shock's sake, as the way it was presented. Where in the book, it was sort of like a build up. Rorschach was dealing with all these criminals until finally, but this was before he actually became Rorschach. He until finally he entered into this one case where someone did something so inhuman.
And he was
Kidnapped the
so
baby.
obviously guilty.
Right, so obviously guilty and everything, and then the book presented itself in a way where it was no dialogue, no dialogue. He saw the dogs, he saw the bones, He saw the dress of the was it a girl that
Hmm.
yeah the little girl and everything, and we pieced together in the book what exactly happened, and then he took his revenge on the of the kidnapper and everything right after that. But we piece all that together. The movie didn't give it a chance to do that, and it really didn't present it in a way where we could appreciate that sequence, if you could even appreciate anything like that. But it just took the whole emotion to me out of that whole thing, because it really changed Rorschach at that point. You know, it changed him from being that just a costume crime fighter to actually being a sociopath.
I feel also like the decision to make him like not torture that guy
Right.
was a mistake. I feel like he definitely should have been.
Oh yeah.
The fire thing was definitely better than what they did. Although I don't remember in the theatrical release that scene being quite as graphic as it was in the director's cut. I think there's a big hunk of head that just comes flying off.
Yeah, yeah. The gratuity of
Wild.
a few scenes in there was like, okay, you're again, Zach, you're missing a point. It's
Yeah.
not really, doesn't have to be like that.
Oh, like that chick's hand.
Yeah,
The secretary's hand is.
yeah. No, we don't really need that, Zach.
Yikes.
Thank you, Zach.
Thanks, Zach.
But yeah, well, I guess I mean we could go over just a lot of other different stuff, but overall, like you said, I really give the movie a solid B after going back over the 12 issues and watching the movie again, especially the director's cut. Gives a better representation of what I thought was a was I think at the time when Watchmen came out, I wanted the movie to be so great so much that it really ended up just falling on its feet due to my expectations. So the movie has not changed whatsoever in the past 10 years since it came out. The movie is still the movie and everything. It's my perspective of the movie that has changed. And like I said, I can appreciate it more. I made a post on Facebook in a couple Facebook groups about what did you think was better? The end. What did you think the end of the movie was better, or did you think the comic book ending was better? So I'll first start with you. I think we talked a little bit about it beforehand, and towards the beginning. But what do you think?
I think the comic book has more to say.
Okay.
More complexity,
Mm-hmm.
more moral complexity.
Okay.
I think that the psychic squid itself is not a device that I miss, but
Mm-hmm.
its replacement with Dr. Manhattan is not a better resolution for me.
Okay. Okay.
That's what I will say.
Does it make more sense in the context of the movie that Dr. Manhattan is the cause versus the squid?
It does for the movie because you don't have to think about psychic stuff. Like, you know what I mean? You don't have to introduce that whole other rigmarole.
Right.
So I understand the simplification,
Mm-hmm.
but you could have done something. You could have made these things and said, "Oh, they're from something else." I feel like
Right.
there's still room for that with
Right.
some of the simplification.
Right.
What did you think?
Well, if this game goes back to when I first seen it, I did not like that they did not put that squid in the movie. I'm beholden to the source material.
You're a squidite.
I'm a squidite, so it needs to be in there. As ridiculous as it is, it needs to be in there. So if it's canon, it needs to be in there. No ifs, ands, or buttons and everything. But in the context of the movie, after going back over to the graphic novel again, it makes more sense.
Mm-hmm.
As far as what the way that Ozymandias set Dr. Manhattan up to take the fall. It just makes a whole lot more sense in that context and everything. But a giant squid, how ridiculous is that? Period. But I think it's presented in the fact that it's so something that's so unbelievable that could happen, that could unite the world, and make them come together to a point where you already have Dr. Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have a giant squid, come from you don't know where to just wreak havoc and destroy the millions of lives and everything. Dr. Manhattan's the version that was presented in the movie of Dr. Manhattan, destroying millions of lives and everything. You got to keep in mind, Dr. Manhattan was still an American soldier. He was an American weapon. So is the world really going to come together for a bunch of Americans dying in that manner like that? And say that, okay, we need to unite, and because Dr. Manhattan is the threat? I don't know. I just don't know. In the context of the movie, I guess it makes sense, because putting a giant squid in there does not make any sense in the context of the movie. But like you said, they could have done something better.
You don't have to be a giant squid. Regular squid. Normal size, bigger squid.
So Scott, if Russia was going to nuke your country anyway,
right,
and Dr. Manhattan did a lot of the damage, it's like your own.
Why would Russia stop attacking us, first of all, because of that? Because like you said, Dr. Manhattan is American. We've been very clear about that this whole time. Everything Dr. Manhattan does reflects on America.
Yeah.
Isn't that awesome?
That's
Except
America's
until it blows up the world.
Right?
Yeah,
huh?
Right?
Yeah. So
that's the other thing about it, is that
if you have this big, powerful gun, Scott, and you shoot your shotgun in your foot, and you are my enemy and everything, am I going to be that sorry for you? Huh? Because you shot yourself in the foot? And blew your foot off?
You get on an old school merry-go-round, like from the old playground, right? And you face, one direction, and you just start shooting a shotgun off, right? Just to start spinning yourself around. The shotgun's just going to go in random directions, right? Everybody gets a taste. The cops are still coming to the merry-go-round. It doesn't matter if it's fair. It doesn't matter if there's no bias. They're still going to show up.
It does not matter at all. So, yeah. I mean, for those new movie purists or whatever who like that ending, I mean, it's fine in the context of that. But if you're really sitting down and think about it, as much as you may not like how the squid ending in that book happened, it happened for a reason. And if you go back and read the graphic novel, you'll appreciate the fact of how he set Max Shea up from the very first time he was mentioned. I think it was in the third issue. I may be wrong. #HateSam. But from the way he presented, he set him up in the first issue as a writer of the Black Freighter, all the way up until they had the scientists and everything, and had them go to that island and to create the squid and everything. For it to even happen, it makes sense.
And you're just like, what's up with this? Like, this seems who cares about this part?
It's the whole sub layer of mystery that's going on inside the book, and that's happening in the whole background, where you got to actually put all this stuff together. The great thing about Watchmen is that you put a lot of stuff together as you keep reading it, as you keep going back over and over. Whereas the movie, it simplified everything. It made it into like a a spectacle where you couldn't have those nuances as much as you may have wanted to. You couldn't have those nuances and complexities that was presented in the book because of the medium that was presented in it. Yeah. Alan Moore said that it was no way, and he was right to a degree, that it was no way that you could translate that book into a film. And I guess you can't, but you can certainly translate it into a TV show. Mm-hmm. Because the way he presented, Dave Gibbons and presented those panels is great storyboarding for a TV show, not a movie.
Yep. I agree. I'll co-sign on all that. I do want to say that again to the people involved with the production of this thing. We just, honestly, I feel like you did as good as you can do. I want to be clear about that. I don't want anyone thinking we're ragging on the production people or the writers or anyone. It's not that. Right. It's just this source material is what it is, and it's probably not best for a 7-hour movie.
Well, that 7 hours is actually a trilogy and everything, so maybe it could have been, but it wasn't presented like that. It was presented in a 3 hour, minus the Black Freighter stuff, which didn't mean to be in there again. It was presented in a 3.5 hour movie.
I'm glad I went with the old physical media Blu-ray.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm pretty happy.
Yeah,
I did old school, Watchmen stuff.
All right. To wrap this up, we are going to be doing like a preview of the show. One of the things I'm hoping the show does, I hope it doesn't make the same mistake Zack did. Be so beholden to what happened that they sort of missed a point. I know Damon Lindelof's history from the Leftovers and Lost, and I recognize a lot of the elements that he took from, especially Lost, from the Watchmen, which makes me believe that he understands the material. But it's one thing in understanding, and it's another thing in having your own agenda. So, what concerns me a little bit, and not to say that he seems like he's going to delve a lot in race with this series and everything, and I don't think the original Watchmen material really delved into that a lot. It didn't really approach that really at all.
It really didn't. In fact, the characters that we spend all our time with, with like 2 exceptions, are all white.
Yeah.
And there is definitely, in my opinion, that makes a very important statement about America, certainly during the time period when the Minutemen were active.
Right.
I mean, the police were not going to let black people run around in mass and, stop robberies and stuff back in the 40s.
Right.
Like it was just
that's a whole nother layer that Alan Moore didn't tack on that could have been explored as well. So if Damon Lindelof's aim is to try to explore that element in today's society, then maybe he really understands this even more than we do.
I think that's going to be, if that's the case, then that would be an important angle, because if Watchmen's a story about America's love affair with superheroes, right? Mm-hmm. If that's what Watchmen is, then I think that you cannot ignore the way that race and class are linked in this country. I think that that's a very important part of the understanding the American story. And so seeing that explored in a fictional proxy,
right,
an alternate America where
right,
Richard Nixon was in charge
right,
for like 4 years or how
right.
Seeing how that's all developed, and to see how, what is the history of black superheroism, right? Like what is the history of these other communities that are not just the mainline Protestant New York white superheroes. Right. What are these other places and other? There's probably other subcultures of superheroism. You would imagine that Chicago and Pittsburgh and Philly are going to have different superheroes than like Houston and St. Louis and Portland, for instance.
Well, the bulk of the series is taking place in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So that's a difference in itself. I thought was like, okay, this is a little different, and one of the things he did say that he was going to touch on is the I don't know if you've heard of Black Wall Street back from
Yes, I'm familiar with that.
Yeah. So
the riots in
the early 20s and everything.
Yeah.
Or 1920s and stuff. So he's going to touch on that, from the Tulsa aspect and everything, and sort of like, jump back and forth from that, and maybe even get the reaction of how America was reacting to costume heroes from that perspective, what you were talking about, from other parts of the country. Because obviously the stuff that was happening in New York didn't just happen just there.
There were way more baseball teams back then than the Yankees.
For real, right?
I mean, every single town had its own.
Exactly, right?
Wheeling, West Virginia probably had its own superhero in the Watchmen universe. And I'll tell you, his name was Moondog. And he drove around, a bike, a lot of flags. Cool dude. We all knew him.
So we're excited. Again, we're excited to see how this is all going to go. We got, like I said, one more podcast, a preview podcast before we actually, and that's going to be a short podcast previewing, the Watchmen. And then we get into it. We get into October 20th. We're going to be coming at you guys with, instant reaction right after the episode. And then the couple days later, we're going to have a full reaction of like the whole episode of how we felt. about it, and going by scene by scene and everything, just breaking it down and see it if Watchmen really measures up to
Absolutely. Is
Watchmen.
it the new Westworld? Is it the new Game of Thrones? Is it is it gonna be that? I'm super hopeful for it too. Something people may notice, some material investments in the Nerdcyclopedia Studios.
Yep.
So we've been upgrading things to kind of get done what we want to get done for you, bring the video here.
Yep.
And we're real excited. A lot of this improvement is to be ready for this show. So we are dialed in, and we're going to be here with your coverage, and we're going to have a great time. It's going to be awesome.
We're definitely ready, so we're setting up big time. So make sure that you keep following us on Nerdcyclopedia, at Nerdcyclopedia on Twitter, on Instagram and on Facebook. Make sure you join in our Facebook group. We do have a Facebook. Sam and Scott are watching Watchmen on Facebook. Yep. And we are posting all over social media. Scott and I, I'm actually at Dog Pound Brown. Scott Ed is at Steel City Hitch.
Yes. Oil and water for the next couple of months.
Yep. And you can follow our regular, like I said, at Nerdcyclopedia. Make sure that you email us again at Nerdcyclopedia, and also our watching Watchmen at Gmail. we just have
it is watchingwatchmen at nerdcyclopedia.com. Again.
Oh man,
that's two. That's two.
I know.
I got it written down. I'm cheating because I got notes.
I'm slipping tonight, but make sure you can find us centrally at nerdcyclopedia.com. All our links are there. Make sure that you listen to our podcast. Make sure that you're telling people about our podcast if you're excited about our podcast, because we love Watchmen and we love, nerd culture and everything.
Yeah, read the blogs that I write.
That he writes,
Mine blogs. Don't get it twisted. It's not that. Those are not for share. This podcast is a collaborative experience between me and Sam, and we really enjoy doing it together. The podcast wise.
Yeah. But the
blogs.
That is him. But we want your input. We want your feedback. Absolutely. And everything, because it energizes us. As soon as we get your feedback and we feed off you, and we look forward to hearing your input and everything. We look forward to talking with you guys when Watchmen comes out for the next 10 episodes. When it first, when it debuts and everything. So catch us on social media and make sure that you give us a tag. If you don't like what we're saying, or you like what we're saying, we're a hashtag Hey Sam, hashtag Hey Scott. But we're excited, Scott. We are super excited about this.
I'm so excited. Like I said, we picked this media way in advance and on purpose to review in detail. If you've been listening with us since we started this feed, how into the graphic novel we got, and the original perspective that we can bring, and the sort of analysis that you're not going to find in other locations. So we really look forward to seeing you here, and check out our other podcasts. Drop us a line, and hey, who watches The Watchmen?
We do.
Sam and Scott.
What we do.
That's it.
See you when we see ya.
See ya. Yeah, so, for me, I wanted to see that leather mask, the full-face leather mask. that took me out of it, because, he should be a lot more ashamed of this scar, and it should be more prominent in my opinion, right? He shouldn't just be running around, not in a full leather face mask.
Damn, what did I get into? The situation messing with my mental. I'm thinking all the things that we've been through, but this pain sharp like a Ginsu.